Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Minister, for a really interesting conversation. So I'm delighted to be joined here on stage by three of our clients, three of our technology clients that I think at different stages of the IDA life cycle. Nearest to me here, we've got Andreea Wade. And Andreea started coding at 15, worked as a journalist in TV, radio, and print media, founded a national music magazine, which I'm really interested to hear more about, maybe not this afternoon. Has also published a short story book in New York and organised concerts and outdoor festivals. But onto the real business, from an IDA perspective, Andreea founded Opening.io, an AI-powered talent matching filter 9 years ago, which he sold to iCIMS in 2020, and fortunately for IDA, becoming an IDA client in the process. iCIMS is a cloud-based human resources and recruiting software company, and Andreea is the Vice President of Product Strategy. Next is Ronan. Ronan Geraghty is Subsidiary COO at Microsoft Ireland. I don't think anybody needs any introduction as to who Microsoft are. And Ronan is responsible for Microsoft sales and marketing on the island of Ireland, including the go-to-market for all of Microsoft's cloud services, which is, as we know, a huge growth area. Ronan has been with Microsoft since 2007, holding several business development roles in the subsidiary before moving to Microsoft Western Europe in 2013 as Director of the Azure Business Group. And lastly, but not least, is Feargal Reid, and Feargal is VP of Artificial Intelligence at Intercom. And Intercom is really interesting. I'll call it a hybrid company, Feargal, as in you're an Irish company with a US HQ, which renders you, again, thankfully for us, an IDA client company. And many of you will have interacted with the Intercom product, maybe without knowing it. It's a chat-enabled AI tool that sits on a lot of websites, enables companies to interact with their customers in a more meaningful way. Feargal's worked in many roles in a number of different companies over the years, including at Clever Cards and Dell EMC. He's also a company founder and has lectured extensively. He holds a PhD in complex or social network analysis. So I'd like to welcome you all to the stage here today. So we'll get straight into it. We're at a really interesting time in AI. I was just saying before we came on stage, I think AI has been mentioned in pretty much every conversation here so far today, unsurprisingly. We're calling this session Exploring the New Era of AI, and it certainly does feel like we're at the dawn of a new era of AI and what it means for us going forward. I'll just start with you, Andreea. I mean, it feels like things are developing at breakneck speed in the world of AI. Could I ask you a little bit about your role at Opening AI, what AI means for you, for your role, and also for your company, and how what it means for your product solutions?
Sure, and thank you for that great intro. I didn't know you were going to say all the things I did since I was 15, but that's okay.
It's on your LinkedIn profile, so.
I did loads of cool things. Yes, you also mentioned that I co-founded and led and then exited a data science company. It was within the talent acquisition and recruitment industry, an industry that I have personally never worked in. I don't necessarily recommend starting a company in an area you don't know anything about, but it kind of helped and it obviously worked out. So our focus was on understanding jobs, understanding candidates, understanding the world of work, and bringing it together in an accurate, responsible, ethical, and so on way. So today, we got acquired in 2020 by iCIMS. iCIMS is a large talent cloud platform. Microsoft does all its hiring through iCIMS. I don't know if you knew that, actually. So they're one of our customers, and so on. But the great and interesting thing is that my team here in Ireland is still building all the AI for the full iCIMS talent cloud. Since iCIMS acquired us, iCIMS also acquired 4 other companies. We're a unicorn. We raised 1.1 billion last year. So we build all the AI from here. It's also interesting that every single member of the team of the original startup is still with us 3.5 years later, which is unusual. It doesn't really happen. So people, that means that we like each other and we're really actually passionate about building in what is a high-risk industry. right? So we'll talk about risk and opportunity and all these things today, but talent acquisition recruitment is categorized within AI as high risk, just like law enforcement, applications of AI and other stuff. So the team is very dedicated, very passionate, and very vested into building ethically, responsibly. So we build matching technology, matching people to jobs, jobs to people. We build things like career pathing. We really just live in jobs data and candidate data and anything else that surrounds it, and we try to bring it together, again, accurately, responsibly, and so on. And we build all of that from here, from Ireland, which is also great because often as part of an acquisition, you end up working on smaller projects or being told from wherever the HQ is on what to do. We still very much own the AI roadmap, and we build it, develop it from here, from Ireland, because this is where the knowledge is. So I think that's great.
That's super. Thanks, Andreea. And Ronan, I know from talking to your colleagues that the whole world of AI has just meant an explosion in inquiries and in business flow for Microsoft here over the last year. Maybe talk to us about what that means for you and some of the use cases that you're seeing that are in demand from some of your customers in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying to Feargal on the way in, it's been quite an incredible 12 months for the industry as a whole. I think if we step back, I don't think we've ever seen a diffusion of technology at this pace and scale as we have with AI. I think ChatGPT was the fastest consumer app in history to reach 100 million users. I think it crossed 1 billion users in February. From a commercial perspective, which is where I would intersect with this and our teams, there's just been an incredible appetite and interest from all of our customers and partners to try and understand what does this mean, how can we take advantage of it, what are the implications, and in particular, what are the use cases. And we can really see very strong signals of intent over the next 12 to 24 months with people diverting or prioritizing investment towards AI initiatives. I think from a Microsoft perspective, if I'm frank, if you were to rewind 3 to 4 years, you probably wouldn't have had Microsoft on the short list of leading players here from an AI perspective. But going back to 2019, I think was a pivotal moment in our development and why we are where we are today, by investing at that time $1 billion in OpenAI, predominantly in the form of Azure credits to give them access to the massive amounts of compute power to train the model. And then in the four intervening years, our engineering teams have been working with OpenAI very closely to integrate generative AI into our own services like Microsoft 365 and Azure. And you use the term Copilot, Andreea. The Copilot is our term for that integration, that virtual or digital AI assistant, your AI companion that sits alongside people every day and hopefully lifts some of the load and removes some of the busy work. So at the moment, I think everybody's trying to understand really what the use cases are. As I've said, we've integrated some of the technologies into our own services, and then there's also the possibility to use the building blocks of AI to address challenges and problems that are specific to a particular vertical or a particular industry. So it's a hugely exciting time. I think if you're familiar with the Gartner hype cycle, latest Gartner hype cycle has AI at the very peak of inflated expectations. But I think I would challenge that and say, at the same time, this is shifting business today. That is not something that is in the future. It is happening now, because while generative AI entered the public consciousness, within the last 12 months, the whole science around AI and discipline has been around for many years. So people aren't starting, it wasn't the starting signal just 12 months ago. We see this impacting every industry, every business function, and from an individual perspective, through HR, through IT, through sales, marketing, all the way across every industry, it's helping organizations be more efficient and be more competitive.
That's great, and I think we're starting to see ourselves here in IDA the impact of AI capability in the Microsoft suite that we work with every day. So thank you for that. Feargal, can I go to you? I think of Intercom as a really scaled client from our perspective, but yet a company that outside of our own team and IDA, a lot of people will never have heard of it. So maybe just give us a flavor of what Intercom does, and what AI means for the product set and for your role specifically.
Absolutely, yeah. So Intercom is maybe about 10 years old. We have a big kind of sales and go-to-market organization in San Francisco, and then our R&D HQ is here in Dublin. And what Intercom does is we started off making this what we call like a business messenger, one of these little chat bubbles you see in the bottom right-hand corner of a website, and you can click on that and kind of talk to the people behind the business that you're interacting with. And over time, we've sort of grown and evolved that to really be this sort of full-service kind of customer support platform, just for people who want to kind of go and they have a customer support question. A lot of our customers are sort of in e-commerce, in business-to-business, software as a service companies, that kind of thing. And really, for us, you know, so many people answering large volumes of customer support queries through our Intercom system, it was very natural for us to say, hey, can we use AI? Can we build like bots that automatically answer questions that people are asking? And we've sort of been in that space for 5 or 6 years. But when we really saw ChatGPT, we saw OpenAI's new tech about a year ago, we really adopted that in a very kind of eager and fast way. And we were one of the first companies to sort of build out sort of customer support solutions using this sort of new tech. And that's been very successful for us, and we really think it's disruptive. It's going to change customer support a lot. So yeah.
Super. Thanks, Feargal, and thanks to you and your team for your interaction with us. It's been really, really super. Ronan, can I start with you this time? I just want to talk a little bit about opportunities. And you know, if you look at the team here that's in the audience today, it's IDA's global team, and it's made up of people who work in front office and back office with clients that are involved in software and semiconductors, in life sciences, biopharmaceuticals, medical technologies, financial services, engineering, and so on. You know, as you look out across the different business areas, what are the main opportunities in front of us, and how do you think Ireland is positioned to take advantage of them?
Yeah, so you know, in terms of opportunities, I mean, I think the opportunities are manifold. You know, when we talk to our customers and partners, not just in Ireland but globally, about how to take advantage of AI and what it means, we typically break it down into 3 areas. First one is the promise of AI around productivity, and that's productivity at an individual level, like I mentioned with a co-pilot, for example, really answering the question, what are the higher value activities that people could focus on if you removed some of the busy work, because we're all, we're drowning in data, we're drowning in emails, iCIMS, chats, meetings, etc. So if you could lift away some of that load, you free people up to bring what's uniquely human, which is the creativity element. There's also the promise of elevating the capability level of an entire function, such as, for example, customer service or HR or sales or marketing. They're sort of horizontal, right? They're broadly applicable, I think, across industries. Where there's a fairly finite number of use cases, which I think I would recommend, if I can offer a suggestion, to start with those. But where it gets really interesting then is when you start to ask the question, how can AI help solve business challenges or societal challenges? And that brings you much more to an industry-specific conversation. Because when we look globally, we see AI making a real difference with innovative applications across life sciences, for example, in terms of early diagnosis of cancers, or being applied to sustainability to help develop new carbon-free materials and so on. The possibilities there are really endless. And I think for everybody in this room who's got a deep understanding of a particular industry, whether it's FSI or whether it's manufacturing or retail, for example, that puts you in a really, really good position to have a use case-based conversation with your clients to understand how AI can help, or how maybe they will be thinking about using AI to help address. In terms of the prize, we're still at the early stage of this in many cases, but the signs are really encouraging, I think, in terms of the return on investment on AI. Recent study that we did with IDC within, I think it was November 2023, indicated around about a 3.5x return on AI investments within a 14-month period. So again, this is real. It's not something that's so far out. It's happening now, and there's enough evidence there to really show that the promise of AI across that productivity strand, but also across the innovation strand, can really transform businesses in a meaningful way.
Okay, thanks, Ronan. And Feargal, you're at a fairly specialised end of the AI spectrum in terms of serving customers, but you must have a good perspective across your own customer base as to where the applications might be maybe closest to us. What's your perspective on where we can win?
Well, I mean, so obviously for us, we build this software for customer support, customer service. We've many different customers that roll it out, and you know, it's changing the way they do customer support already. We're getting like 40% of their queries being resolved by this new AI stuff, and like, where's the limit here? Like, you know, computers are now very good at understanding natural language at some basic level in a way they weren't before. So many tasks, so many human cognitive tasks that people do day to day in the workplace are basically that, and they're now addressable and accessible to AI systems that they just weren't 2-3 years ago. So where that goes, I think we're still at the very early days of seeing, but we definitely have, you know, one industrial application. We've built a product around end to end. It's working, and I think we'll be disruptive for, you know, certain strands of customer support. Maybe there's probably many kind of different verticals or different application areas like that you know, people are still working through the product development cycles on, and I think when their kind of new products kind of, you know, are developed kind of to target like one business use case, another business use case, I think over the next few years we'll see a lot of change quite quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. And Andreea, again, you're in the talent area, so that's very specific domain application, but do you have a broader perspective from your experience as to where there might be most societal gains and then business gains?
I mean, look, moonshot is whatever. Think of healthcare, think of medicine, new drug discovery, you know, all of these things that are possible because we're now able, you know, we have this technology. NLP, natural language processing, has evolved. We have these really large language models that can ingest data, and they can, you know, make connections that they weren't possible, you know, a few years ago, and so on. So you can apply them to everything, really. So I think there's a great opportunity in that, in tackling, you know, some big problems that we have as society, and those are the moonshots. I probably won't be solving any of them. So realistically, if you come down from the moonshot and all the cool things that are possible, I think what we're going to see in the next 1 to 5 years is realistically solving more of the same, but doing it better. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked at, you know, every year or in any different industry, or you Google, I don't know, innovators within agriculture, I don't know, I'm just giving an example, or innovators within customer service or talent acquisition. You see all these startups emerging every, you know, 2, 3, 5 years that talk about solving some of the same problems that other innovators 5 years ago were talking about. So we are solving more of the same in many ways, but we're able now to do it better, because none of these things are yet solved. I think one of for me as an AI person, I guess, throughout the years, you know, I sometimes was challenged or challenged others. I work with startups and do various different things, is do you actually need AI for that? And sometimes that was a question that made sense then because of what technology was able to do, the data that you have access to, and all of that kind of stuff. I do believe that with, you know, generative AI capabilities, these large language models, do you need AI for that is not necessarily the question anymore. It's reimagining how to solve some of the problems that still need to be solved, because we have the technology, we have the computational capabilities, we have the data, and we can connect things in ways that we weren't able to connect before. So I think we'll see a lot of more of the same, and then yes, you know, some moonshots and hopefully some great problems that humanity still has might be aided and be solved by some of this technology collaborating with the humans. We're not yet replacing the human.
Great. So big healthcare solutions, apart from helping us to solve our email overload. Yeah, okay, great stuff. So Andreea, I might stick with you for the moment. As I mentioned at the start, the three of you are with companies that are at different stages of the IDA client journey or life cycle. But Andreea, you're the most recent in terms of coming through the acquisition of Opening.io by iCIMS. For a lot of the team here in front of us, it'll be interesting to understand how IDA can help ensure that the Irish subsidiary is at the forefront of the company's AI roadmap. And you're the most recent one, and I've seen you mentioned at the front of or the top of the conversation that some of the core team are here developing that AI roadmap. So how should IDA think about that in terms of influencing some of our 1,800 clients, 1,900 clients to make sure that we are really relevant in that AI journey?
I mean, great question. And the answer, lies not just with what you can do, but is it also how can we utilize, or what are the resources that we are going to utilize in building the use cases and the products and so on that we need to build. And we are actually in the middle of collaborating with the IDA on some feasibility stuff, which is great and it's interesting. And I would say I found the interaction very helpful because we do not have, we're playing a little bit. We're experimenting, I want to say, right? You talked about Copilot and, you guys, it's really a category that's emerging. It's this personal assistant of sorts that is helping you achieve whatever you do. Some of it might be around content creation, emails that you send, summarizing things, but also taking work from one end to the other, right? So it's helping you move through software. Software was built in a way that you had to, there were steps and clicks and all these things that you had to do. I think what GenAI can bring and products like, Copilots can link together a lot of these applications, can help the user. One of the things that we're doing internally, what we're trying to figure out, and we need help in us putting resources towards this experimental stage, is building what we call these expert users. If you look at research out of all the capability that any software out there has, what is the user using? And sometimes it could be 25% or 30% of the full capabilities some kind of a software has, like let's say Salesforce or what iCIMS does and so on. So users are not fully using the full capability of the system, and then there's churn and there's, yada yada. So what we're trying to develop is, with the aid of AI, is not just build automation and build intelligence into products, is literally build a new type of product on top of what we have built and create these expert users that, if you never used iCIMS, you're in there, you give the platform a goal, and the Copilot will help you achieve that without you knowing exactly how to use this thing. So this is something that we've never done before. It's a different approach by using these technologies, and we don't yet know the outcomes we're playing, so we need to fit somehow into some kind of a framework that understands that and says, we understand that you're exploring all these things, this is how we can support you. I think it comes down to collaboration.
Yeah. Okay, and Ireland has proved a good location for that collaboration and that exploration up to now. Super. So Feargal, Intercom made a very deliberate decision to build an engineering organization here. Can you talk me through what the factors behind that were and what continues to be the deciding factors in growing that team further here?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is an obvious thing to say, I guess, to this audience, but there's very good software engineering talent in Ireland. And I spent a couple of years in San Francisco. It's so hard to run an engineering team in San Francisco compared to in Ireland. You got to worry about retention. People are always bouncing between different companies. There's a high density of talent here, and I think Intercom has, predominantly focused on maybe the top end of a particular subset of that talent market, and managed to do really well there. And that's a big reason we're still here. Obviously now we're trying to hire more kind of specialized AI roles. They're hard to hire everywhere, but I think we're still doing fairly well in Ireland overall. So yeah, that's absolutely huge for us.
Okay, super. And Ronan, the Microsoft team in Ireland is very diverse across all of the different functions that you need and serve, from infrastructure through to services and product. So where does Ireland fit from an AI perspective for Microsoft?
Yeah, I think, I mean, whether it's Microsoft or any other organization at the moment, they're all evaluating what they need to do, considering what they need to do to lay the foundations for AI and adoption across the organization. So there's some patterns beginning to emerge, and some things I think would be very impactful if teams based in Ireland could influence for the broader organization. So first one comes back to those use cases that I mentioned earlier, right? So a deep understanding of the use cases and how they map to the business priorities and business challenges, whatever that industry is. So if it's FSI, for example, you know, fraud prevention, not just fraud protection, is very, very hot at the moment, for example. The second one then would be, you know, the technical strategy. So AI fundamentally is driven by data. So you need to have the right infrastructure in place. You need to have a unified data strategy in place so that you can provide the AI applications with reliable and secure and scalable access to that data. So how can teams based in Ireland, you know, lay that foundation in place, particularly in light of, you know, as we'll touch on shortly.
Does Ireland's scale give an advantage from a data perspective, given that we are a relatively contained location with a size that's probably large enough to test?
Yeah,
small enough to test, but large enough to prove.
I think that comes into the next point, which is kind of tracking the, you know, how AI and use cases kind of percolate throughout the organization. And there's different schools of thought on this one, I think, in terms of, you know, does it become democratized across the organization, or do you, you know, concentrate the expertise in a smaller team, right? Yeah. Does prompt engineering, for example, become a universal skill set, such as the way we're all familiar, hopefully, with Word and Excel to a greater or lesser degree, and then you've got the power users. Yeah. I think if you can, you know, get some early wins for the organization in Ireland and scale out from there, I think that would be, you know, really impactful for the organizations that the people in this room are aligned with.
Super, thank you. And maybe Feargal, I'll start with you with the skills question, because we think about skills all the time in IDA from the context of what the needs of our clients are, and with AI evolving so rapidly, it's going to require a different skill set, I presume, from an engineering perspective as well as from a business perspective. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's different ways to interact with these systems. We're very deep, so like we're trying to take this new tech and like turn it into products at quite a deep level. So we're looking for people, you know, often they'll have PhDs in sort of like science or in quantitative backgrounds. You know, my ideal would be a very large number of people coming with like physics and computer science PhDs and like, you know, 3 years of industrial experience as data scientists or software engineers, and then come in and joining to work on this stuff. That's because the tech is very immature. It's got a lot of sharp edges, right? Like when you actually try and turn these things into a product, always with AI and with machine learning, it's very easy to build a prototype that looks convincing but actually breaks in production. And then to actually get it, like, you know, the last 10% takes 90% of the effort, right? To actually like kind of sand off those rough edges and turn something into a product, still you need to go deep. And so yeah, so that's the sort of work we do. And so we need kind of pretty advanced skills, pretty advanced kind of scientific skills. Different organizations are going to be different. Like, you know, even prompt engineering where you're like trying to tell the models what to do, it's got a lot of sharp edges. Like, you know, you can build prototypes quickly, but testing these things requires a lot of data, a lot of scientific method, and, you know, it's difficult to get these things to the point where you can reliably put them in production. Now, maybe that'll all go away in 2 to 3 years, right? It's moving so fast. Some people think this whole prompt engineering thing is going to be a transitory phenomenon. But right now with today's tech, you need quite advanced skills to turn this into like really reliable products, certainly for many application areas.
Okay. And Ronan, I might come to you then, because, you know, it goes beyond the engineering organization into general business, and, you know, whether you're in a sales role or back office role, you're going to need to understand or at least appreciate the capability of AI for talking to your customers, whether they're internal or external. The school leavers of today or tomorrow, maybe, what skills are they going to need to navigate an AI-enabled world?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think What's interesting about this in the last 12 months as well, this is much bigger than just a technology discussion. It touches every element of the business, from, like I said, the individual through to every business function. And so the skills that are needed, to be honest, vary depending on the role that the person is playing within the organization. So, you know, one of the things that's very different for us over the last 12 months or so is that this conversation has really been elevated very senior in organizations up to exco and board level, which is where the decision is made about the company direction. So firstly, at that level, kind of understanding, and this may seem like a very simplistic statement, but understanding what generative AI is, what it means, and how it can be applied at that high level, at the exec level, is really important. And then you've got the people who are preparing the organization for AI, paving the way. The skills piece really fits in there. It's really important. You can have the technical platform and so on in place, but you have to really make sure that people are capable and ready to take advantage of it. Feargal mentioned earlier the natural language user interface. That is really a game changer in terms of the human-computer interaction here, but it's as much art as science. And, you know, speaking from my own personal experience as well, you know, as a Copilot user within Microsoft, it does take time to build that habit. You know, it is iterative by nature. What you get back first time may not be perfect, but it's a good start. You need to build that expertise over time. And I think it's incumbent on all of us in industry, but also in academia and also in government, to make sure that people of all backgrounds are beginning to get exposed to the skills that they need to take advantage of these applications. I think the soft skills, to come directly to your question after a bit of an intro, the soft skills are going to be absolutely critical. Yeah. Human creativity, communication, critical thinking, and analytical judgment are going to be absolutely critical, and collaboration. The human will still be and needs to be in the lead, and they need to be, you know, taking advantage of what is technology-based and data-driven, but, you know, the human is very much front and center, and the ability to incorporate AI tools and AI as a tool into your own personal workflow or your organization's workflow, I think is going to be critical. That's going to require flexibility. It's going to require curiosity and adaptability, because it is changing. It's changing on a, you know, on a pace that really we've never seen before. Yeah,
and I think when we spoke recently, we talked about critical thinking moving up the charts to #1 as the key business skill for the next generation. Is there anything you disagree with there, Andreea, or do you have a different perspective on the skills of the future that today's students are going to need?
Definitely don't disagree. So we need the two, and I have an example. So you do need one discourse that it's kind of, sometimes you hear it, is that, you know, these LLMs, these technologies are now available to everyone, and you can build without being a data scientist and whatever. And I hear that, and I get very afraid, and I cringe, and all these things, because I'll give you an example. We had an internal hackathon. Again, we're in a high-risk industry. We have an internal hackathon every year. I judged it this year, and 5 out of 9 teams that came together built Gen AI capabilities. None of the teams were data scientists. Funny enough, the data scientists built some architecture and vector DB and whatever they did. So what was very interesting to me, that out of the 5 that built with LLMs in a high-risk industry, not one considered responsible AI and ethical AI. It was built, I suppose, like I would build a house. I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer. I don't know everything that goes in there. I could probably 3D print some stuff and put it together, and the thing will fall apart and kill me in the middle of the night, day 2, right? So you could just see that without really truly understanding what you're playing with, what you're building it, you will not have the architectural considerations of whatever the models, you know, the goal that you give them, the data consideration, the bias fairness considerations, and so on. So you do need people to understand. You know, we go quite deep as well. We have data scientists, PhDs, and all this stuff, and we, while looking forward, you know, we're building all these at platform level APIs that other teams will be able to use, with still gatekeeping in a positive way within the data science team, because you can't just go
build something.
The technology exists,
Yeah.
go build, and you do need critical skills, you do need emotional intelligence, you do need all those soft skills to really assess, well, I'm putting this out in the world, what is the goal that I'm giving it, and what are the consequences for it, to be out there and to function accordingly, so yeah.
That's actually leads perfectly into the next area I just wanted to explore briefly, and I'm conscious I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions, but I just want to talk a little bit about risks, and Feargal, you and I had an interesting conversation on this before Christmas. The AI pioneer and the founder of DeepMind, Mustafa Suleyman, argues that we're approaching what he called a critical threshold as powerful new technologies like AI profoundly disrupt society. And they're fairly serious words to use. What's your perspective on this? Are we moving too fast with AI, which Elon Musk has argued, or on the other end of the scale, Mark Andreessen says we shouldn't miss an opportunity and we should plow ahead as quickly as possible to save every life we can. So where do you sit on that spectrum of opinion?
I mean, it's a super complex issue. So I would say that, like, you know, you got to differentiate between today's technology and today's AI and what might appear soon. And like, so if you look at like GPT-4, that doesn't seem risky and it seems extremely useful. I think what people are worried about is no one really knows how fast the tech is going to get dramatically better. And when we're having the discussion about like skills for people in school or people in college now, I don't know what the workforce is going to look like in 5 years, right? Like maybe it'll look like the same, but it's very difficult to say. There definitely won't be some big leap forward. And so I would say I think it's good to move fast at the moment, but I'm definitely in the camp where it's like, hey, there are real dangers or real risks here, potentially, at some unknown point in the future. And so it is time to start thinking about managing those. Maybe that means regulation, maybe that means something else. That's a complex question. But yeah, I don't rubbish anyone who says there are risks. I'm in the camp where I don't see really sound arguments that there are no risks. So yeah.
And in the context of those risks, then, is the EU right to regulate? Ronan, maybe I'll start with you on that. Should we be rushing ahead with regulation? Thierry Breton was very proud of his announcement pre-Christmas that they'd reached agreement on the AI Act. Is that the right approach, or are we going to stifle innovation with that rush to regulate?
No, I think so. I mean, I think the agreement was reached at a political level before Christmas, and there's some more details still to flow through in terms of what it will actually take from a technical perspective to implement that. But broadly speaking, I think regulation from for the EU will hopefully accelerate responsible AI innovation across every country, including Ireland. From a Microsoft perspective, we've long advocated for the use of responsible AI. There have been missteps in the past, and as a result, we put in place responsible AI principles back in 2018, and they govern everything we do, from a research perspective through to engineering, through to policy and governance. So I think it's the right time to be having these conversations, so that we have the twin track of making sure we pursue the benefits, but also making sure that we are cognizant of what we need to do to manage, mitigate, and avoid the risks.
And actually, Brad Smith has a really interesting podcast on the topic, which for anybody who wants to delve deeper into, is very interesting to listen to. Andreea, where do you sit on the risk debate and then the regulation aftermath of that?
I mean, of course there's risk. I haven't owned a TV in like 15 years. We project onto the wall. I have never used Siri on my iPhone. I'm an AI person that has a very dumb house, the opposite of smart. So I try not to give my data away. I'm very aware of these things, although I work with this technology, or because I work with this technology, I suppose. So of course there is risk. Again, high-risk industry, bias, fairness, all this, so relevant. This is an evergreen kind of roadmap item for us. And I think we need to invest in understanding risk, right? You talked about the EU AI regulation and all of that. Some kind of political agreement has been reached, but then you have, France, Germany, and Italy, largest economies in Europe, writing a paper together and kind of going, and Macron talking about we're kind of stifling innovation, and we should not regulate foundational models. We should let companies do that and have code of conduct, and there's all that kind of stuff. And then there's, UK last year came out with their own kind of AI regulation, which is framed as pro-innovation. So I guess there is a lot to figure out. This should be regulated. Certain industries absolutely should be regulated, as is talent acquisition and recruitment. We are moving forward with this. The world is moving forward with this. But I think we all need to understand it. So when we talk about the skills of the future and critical thinking and all this, digital literacy and AI literacy, if you wish, it's going to be so important. We need to understand what it all means outside of our bubble. The world is now made of just tech companies or science-first companies or whatever. We are in a bubble. I am in a bubble, and I realize that. Yeah. So I say yes to understanding. If you want innovation and you want to be able to, use these technologies, invest in understanding risk.
Super. So yeah, we need to understand what's happening to our data and the ethical use of it. So I'm going to leave a little bit of time for a question, but maybe one rapid-fire lightning question for each of you, if I can. Maybe one prediction as to how AI will have a real and positive and lasting impact on society. Take the iPad for questions if there are questions. Feargal, I'll start with you.
I mean, certainly current or short-term improvements in technology will remove a lot of rote work. You'll have better search experiences. After that, I personally predict continued advancement and continued development. I think these models will probably get smarter and smarter, and I don't know where that's going to go. Don't know where that's going to take us.
Okay, thanks. Ronan?
I think, again, I think what we'll all experience probably is hopefully the benefit of an AI assistant in both personal and professional lives. So whether you're searching the web or whether you're in your professional environment. I think beyond that, I think we can certainly anticipate it making big breakthroughs in areas such as healthcare, for example. I think in terms of diagnostics and biomedical imaging and supporting the clinicians in that environment. I think that's one area that's would definitely help us across Europe, particularly when you think about the demographic pressures that we have in areas like healthcare.
Super. Andreea?
I mean, you could take any industry and throw some moonshots at you and all of that. But I think one thing that will happen, and it's interesting and it's kind of exciting, is personalization. Personalized career paths, personalized education, personalized financial whatever, but that aspect of personalization. And it's kind of happening, I think, for the first time ever. All of these things are happening not just because technology is available, but also of our behavior. There's people here in the room that have their own instances of ChatGPT. I guarantee you, even if maybe the IDA didn't okay it or whitelist it yet, this is the case in every single org really right now. And there's this whole phenomenon of bring your own AI or shadow AI, where we all maybe we use Grammarly to, write things better in a grammatically correct thing, or maybe we use it to translate things. We have a little kind of AI tool case that we're going around with. We're going to be doing more and more of that. Companies will cop on that, and they'll allow that personalized, solution. So that's just kind of one thing that's, I think, will happen.
I think that is similar to what Stephen Kinsella said this morning on personalized education, which is really, really interesting. I'm just going to take one of the questions because we are very, very tight on time here, and I think this is one that I did intend to ask during the conversation, just didn't get to it. But the IDA employment base is around 300,000 people working directly for IDA client companies, and we're all interested to understand how that's going to be disrupted and what the potential risk is to that base of employment. We talked a little bit about opportunities, but we didn't touch on the actual risk to that base, as to what areas might be disrupted first. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Maybe, Ronan, I could start with you on that question, and we'll finish on this one.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this this is obviously a hot topic for debate. You ask 10 different analysts, you'll probably get 10 different answers. I think, from an Ireland perspective at the moment, given we are at full employment, I think I would look to, some of the existing evidence that's there. One of the earliest examples we have of AI joining the workforce is with something called GitHub Copilot, which is a tool which assists developers, again, side by side, and think of it as a turbo, like autocomplete for writing code. What that helps, I guess, particularly in light of the shortage of developer skills, is accelerate the delivery of a backlog of features that deliver business value. It doesn't mean we need less developers. If anything, we need more, but it makes the existing developers more productive. So I think, for me at the moment, the conversation is more about productivity rather than workforce reduction. And when we talk to our clients, or don't take my word for it, when the likes of IDC and others talk to clients, what people are hoping to achieve in the short to medium term, is absolutely increased operational efficiency and employee productivity, much more so than workforce reduction, because it's about remaining competitive. And if you're delivering efficiencies which drive greater productivity, and your competitors are doing likewise, but you're reducing your workforce, you're going to fall behind. So I think I would anchor it on the productivity gains rather than what's to be lost.
Feargal, would you disagree with that, or have an alternative perspective?
Well, I mean, so we work in customer service, and we've sort of like, the whole company Intercom is sort of like pivoting to try and be this AI-first company, because we think customer service is going to be completely changed by AI, by this new generation of model that's out there. And we have early products that I think have empirical evidence that show that. Like, we have customers who, our products are now answering a lot of their customer support questions that they didn't before. What's that going to mean? Is that going to disrupt the customer service workforce, or is it just going to answer the rote questions and then they're going to do like higher value tasks, like Jevons paradox or something? Sometimes something gets more efficient, you want to do more of it. I don't think we know yet, but I definitely think there's the potential for workforce disruption, particularly in things like customer support, people dealing with like the same cases again and again, a lot of repetition. Anything like that, people are probably working on AI products at the moment to try and disrupt it. How successful they'll be will depend on the specific area, the specific vertical.
Super, thanks Feargal. And Andreea, have any other perspective on that? Are we looking at major disruption, or are really wait and see?
I mean,
yes, but we don't know.
1 to 5 years, again, we're in a bubble. Data entry jobs, basic customer support, simple data analytics type roles, these will get automated. And that is the reality of things. But what I'll say to kind of have a positive spin on it, and I do believe in it, is that with certain roles, with certain industry, with certain type of work, we're going to move eventually. In some areas there probably will be full automation, but right now we're moving from doing the work to overseeing the work and improving the work. So we're still very much needed, I think.
Okay, super. Listen, that's a positive and an optimistic note to end on. I think the screen is telling me to announce a coffee break until 4, is that correct? 4 p.m.? Don't we have 3? I think it says 4, but the text is cut off at the end, so I'll go with 4 unless somebody throws something at me. But I just want to thank Andreea and Ronan and Feargal for a really interesting conversation. Based on the number of questions, we could have talked for hours, so I really appreciate the conversation here today. So please show your appreciation for their time.